Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this AI Masterclass, wherever you're joining us from this evening. I think my colleague Sam put a message in the chat box there. Please do let us know where you're joining from. My name is Laura Master Stonehouse. I'm the Manager of Student Experience here at Fourth Rev. So I work with our learners on the data analytics program from the point they join us from our enrollment advisors and have gone through the application process all the way through the 4 action-packed courses of the data analytics program out the other side as they join our alumni space as a learner who has completed the full career accelerator. So I'm delighted to welcome everyone this evening. Tonight's session is a little bit different, where we have some current learners on the data analytics program joining us. We also have some learners who've completed the program and have moved on hopefully to successful careers. And we also have some prospective learners who are potentially considering joining the program at the next available intake. Just for a quick reference for that particular group, the next cohort begins on the 14th of October and applications are being accepted currently. My colleague Sam in the background here working for us will be adding a link to the chat box should you like to download a brochure about the program or should you like to request a call with one of our wonderful enrollment advisors to learn a little bit more about the Data Analytics Career Accelerator. Now, tonight, I've mentioned there before, we are talking about an AI masterclass instead. So just to explain a little bit there, this AI masterclass is an addition to the Data Analytics Career Accelerator. It consists of 4 live masterclasses with an AI specialist, Jessie Schmidt. So I'm delighted this evening. This is the first session of a next series of 4. So for our current learners joining us, your first session of 4 that you will have access to. And we hope that you will enjoy the session. Before I hand over to Jessie and let the real AI expert get talking, just to share that you can communicate with Jessie during the webinar using the chat box or also the private Q&A box as well. She will also be asking you questions and just general kind of get feelings from the group using the chat box there. Okay, so feel free to add your questions there, any commentary about the topics that Jessie will be covering. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope the session to run until around about 8 o'clock UK time this evening, and the recording will be shared with everybody afterwards as well. So no more waffle from me. Without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Jessie, our AI specialist, who will be leading tonight's masterclass. Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you, Laura. Awesome. Nice to see you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, feel free to type in where you're coming from. I see Joseph from London, Sushi from India. Nice to see everyone. I'm calling in from San Francisco today. Can everyone see my screen okay? Oh, awesome. From Utrecht, from Cambridge. I see Ireland. Hi from Spain. Hi from Istanbul. Welcome, welcome from Mexico. Hi. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And by the way, as we go along this session today, you all can feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions or the Q&A box, and I'll try to either get to them during our session or afterwards. But today we're going to really dive into an overview of Gen AI in data analytics and how the world is being shaped by generative AI, and just kind of all the aspects of data in our world that are kind of converging that we're now able to gain so many more insights about. So hello, just wanted to introduce myself really quickly. So I'm Jessie. I'm currently an AI developer focused on applying Gen AI in business applications. My education training and background is more in neuroscience, and I did research in like neurobiology of mental health and global mental health. So that's where I kind of first gained data analysis background using R and Python to gain insights about neuroscience, and then currently now have one foot still in biology research. I'm big in the Bay Area synbio space, and helping volunteers start up a community lab, as well as developing and fine-tuning AI systems. So I have sort of this experience in different industries from different using different forms of data. And I think really the actionable output of being able to really curate these data systems using more autonomous and agentive AI to help us make decisions is super exciting. And yeah, just like the world of data is transforming super fast, like biology and business, and we're having kind of embedded systems and sensors collecting so many more forms of data. And this has kind of contributed to the AI boom, because especially when it comes to biology, I can talk more about how a large language model like ChatGPT and Claude relates to some of these biology models coming out. But they're all kind of treat this data as language in a way. So curating a high quality data set and designing prompts really become the majority of the work of making like a full-fledged data system and analysis system. So just a little bit of the agenda today. For around the first 20 minutes, I'll be covering theory. There's a lot to know, a lot of updates that have happened in the field. I also am going to ask you all a few questions to see sort of where you are, what your usage of AI is like. And yeah, we'll cover the basics of transformers and GPTs, generative pre-trained transformers, which is the architecture behind ChatGPT, and some of the recent foundational breakthroughs in the field, like why is all of this happening right now? And then we will showcase and use the capabilities of large language models to generate and visualize synthetic data using a fictional schema that I generated. And so we'll discuss how this can be expanded and applied to predict future trends. And then we'll have Q&A. I'll try to leave time for any questions. But yeah, this is just to also showcase sort of the use of how you can and why you might want to generate synthetic data, and then ways of visualizing that. And just to start off really quickly, this is just some of the types of data that a company might want to interface with, right? So there's like all these internal data sources, internal documents, sensors and controllers sometimes, right? Website logs about who's visiting your site. If you're a media company, or if you're sort of any modern company that has a digital footprint, how are you tracking your customers? And then you have the external data sources of social media, weather forecasts. These are even just a small subset of all of the data that can be collected. And then when it comes to analyzing it, there's sort of a process that data analysts can fit into, and this goes within a broader scope of data careers. So not only you have the data analysts, but you have the data scientists, the data engineers, the data like BI analysts, and all of these are kind of intermeshed and overlapping more and more in how they use AI as well. So all of these things that I talk about apply to the entire world of data in companies and how that's transforming with the use of generative AI. And I see, yeah, a few people said, could you go into presenter mode? Yeah, I was having some weird issues with that, but hopefully you can all see it okay. And it's big enough. I'm gonna try to increase it. Okay. And then in these types of data sources, we have different ways of structuring it. So you might know of like JSON or SQL. These are really commonly used by data analysts, or PDF text files, CSVs. So I'm really curious to know from all of your perspectives, what type of data are you thinking about using, interfacing with? Here are the different types that I mentioned. What do you have experience sort of interfacing with in your job or industry? If you just want to type in what type of data you're familiar with. Okay. CSV and images, SQL, CSV, mainly CSV. Telemetry data, okay. Images and video, yeah. So we'll talk about this too. Yeah, a lot of people have experience using CSV in different image, video types, all sorts, depends on scientific equipment. So yeah, I think something cool when it comes to generative AI and a use case of the data, just Sushi, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I see you raise your hand if you wanted to say something. But we can really easily transform data from one type to another, as well as use just plain text to query all these different data types now. And multimodal large language models are getting really good at even interfacing with all of these different types of data. So you can put in images and ask it questions, give it a CSV, give it a JSON. JSON is kind of the more AI native type of data, so it's easier for them to understand. But yeah, that's just one use case of asking questions in plain text and transforming data from one type to another just with a prompt. It's really easy to do now. And how many of you use ChatGPT every day or Claude? I'm curious what language models you prefer to use. Yeah, let me see. Rui says, yes, I use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is occasionally, all the time, every day. Claude is a friend of mine. Yeah, Perplexity. I love Perplexity too. Awesome. ChatGPT, Llama 3.1. Yeah. What's awesome about the AI landscape right now is that actually we have open source models that are state of the art. So they're as good as Llama 3.1 is an open source model by Meta, Mark Zuckerberg released, and it even outperforms ChatGPT on a lot of benchmarks related to empathy and I believe data analysis. Claude as well has been crazy for using data. So cool. I would say okay, here, I'll advance to the next slide. So like I said, I'm going to cover theory around Gen AI and its role in data analytics. And Gen AI models come in all these various different forms. Natalia asked, which one's better for data? Claude. So Claude is currently a lot better at interpreting structured data like tables. It was really difficult for a long time this was like one of the biggest problems that people in the AI space were working on, was extracting information correctly from tables, especially when you're uploading an entire PDF report or a study. And a lot of these models were just getting it wrong. So Claude has like almost 100% accuracy on that now. But yeah, they're always kind of one-upping each other. A model will come out and then another one will try to outperform it. But I prefer Claude the most now, especially for their artifacts features, which are super awesome. And yeah, and these come in various forms. They're all tailored to process different types of data. So as well, we have text, we have our basic text models, image, audio, video. I'll talk more about that. And as you're probably aware, they have already revolutionized the field of natural language processing, but that's only increasing. And this is a mermaid diagram I had Claude create just with a single prompt. And yeah, it's just another visualization of here's all these different types of data sources that are coming in from our world. Visual data, audio data, structured data, domain specific, and these are all collected. And then the data analyst comes in and interfaces with the collected data, processes it, analyzes with different types of analytics, so descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive, kind of increasing from the levels of complexity and future forecasting. And generative AI can kind of come in from any level of this, starting at the lower ones and aided by a person who knows how to use it, increase your own work output significantly for basically all of these different levels of analysis. This kind of likened the types of analytics to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've ever seen that pyramid. So descriptive analytics is at the bottom. It's like the raw data. And then you go up in complexity. So pretty much every organization is going to use diagnostics. Devapriya says you cannot read the text. Okay. I'm not sure. Are other people able to read the text on this screen? It's a little bit small. I'm sorry about that, guys. Okay, some people said you can read it fine. Yeah. So I was having issues with the presenter mode for some reason. But you said if I can zoom in, you can see it. Okay, I'll try to keep it there. So as we kind of go up to the top, we get to adaptive and autonomous types of analytics. And this is where we can develop a system that learns itself. It can adapt to changes, and then it can kind of come up with solutions and recommend them on autopilot mode. And so we're still in examples of these that are in production are like autonomous car driving. So that's a really complex system that uses all the inputs to figure out in real time how not to crash and how to stay in the lane and drive correctly. And I think the future of the data analyst role and kind of the data professional in society will be more and more interfacing with and managing these adaptive and autonomous systems and serving as the liaison to make sure they're in line with business decisions and goals, and really focusing on the storytelling around it. And our world is really driven by data, and so is AI. And a little clarifying point, a lot of people wonder, what is AI versus machine learning versus deep learning? So I think this is important to just cover really quickly. So machine learning is actually a subset of AI, and artificial intelligence in general is developing systems that resemble intelligence from our own definition, our human definition of what intelligence is. So this could even just be programming it to say hello. You would think that's intelligent. But machine learning is when the machine learns how to respond based on the data that you've given it. And going more narrow, and we have deep learning, which is a subset within machine learning. So that's where you have machine learning algorithms with brain-like structures. So it's more neuromorphic type of machine learning. And these are called artificial neural networks. Based on the architecture of the brain and what we know about the brain, there's a lot of cross-talk between neuroscience and AI as fields. So we like to model these systems after biology. And then generative AI, actually the popular Gen AI models that we have are all types of deep neural network architectures. So they're all types of deep learning that have emerged. And generative AI in specific is a subset of AI and deep learning that focuses on generating new content. So it's whenever the model generates new content based on an input that you give it. And this is what's called inference. If you ever hear about AI inference, it's a buzzword, but it really just means the AI is responding with an output based on whatever you give it. So that inference could look like giving you an image or giving you a text response. And these are all different types of generative AI applications and ways that they can be used. And traditional AI systems are aiming to make decisions and predictions and classifications based on input data. And yeah, and like I said, generative AI is more creating new original content. So something that's important to keep in mind here is that it's generated by this model. So you can't take it to be fact necessarily what ChatGPT tells you or what Claude tells you. So these systems can help you kind of imagine new possibilities. It's important that if you do create like content that you intend to put out in the world or data to really know what the implications are and kind of how you can use it and know that it's not to be taken as fact unless you fact check it and your goal is to create something factual. But it can also be kind of to expand the latent space of the different possibilities that you can imagine. And it does do a pretty good job of analyzing and visualizing real data that you give it, but it does make mistakes at the same time. So these are just things to keep in mind. And the models are getting better and better, so we have to worry about that less as we get sort of more smaller, fine-tuned models on specific domains. I really think that'll be a lot more of the future of AGI and really adding value in companies rather than just one large model that's continuously trained on a lot of synthetic data. And then, yeah, like I said, types of generative AI models include these different language models. So here are examples, and some of you guys named these: ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, these are some awesome image and video models that I enjoyed trying out, as well as audio. And all of these, I'll talk more about the language models in specific and what that architecture is in a second. Because this is really what's revolutionized the world in the past 2 years since ChatGPT came out, which is a large language model. Because it's trained on a lot of human language that's been spread all over the internet. And this is what data has gone into training ChatGPT, for instance. So web data, books. They say that they don't use like YouTube videos and things like that, but it seems pretty clear based on what I've heard that they have trained on a lot of private content, but have managed to avoid lawsuits. But OpenAI has pretty much now trained ChatGPT on the entire internet. So they're generating more synthetic data because the common consensus now is that the more data you put into training a model, the better it gets. And that's what we've seen so far. But there's been kind of a cutoff point where at least we're getting diminishing returns, and now we're kind of we're seeing the output of the synthetic data that we're putting into these models. So we're kind of getting a lot of nonsense that we might see. And we can avoid this by generating better prompts, because that helps us retrieve more intelligent information depending on the quality of our prompts. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind that these models are being trained on synthetic data now. And I think we will see a shift in data hygiene in kind of what's going into these. And here's examples of adaptations or inference that we could do with it: summarizing information, sentiment analysis, planning. And so you might have been wondering why all of a sudden in the past couple of years, was there this breakthrough in AI? Why is everyone talking about AI suddenly as of January 2023? And Vanessa asked, do you think prompting will become less important as the models improve? That's an interesting question. I think it's possible, right? Because these models will kind of be able to have more, well, there's a difference between just an AI system and an agent system. And I think like more and more we will see more agentive systems in our workflows and our businesses. And basically what an agent is just an AI with a function. So it's an AI that can perform a certain task. So people are creating complex agent workflows. And I played around with this as well. Say you want to create a content generation flow, and you have a bunch of RSS feeds that get congregated into like a text file. And then you have one agent that can review all of this news that's coming in and then create possible article ideas, and then passes into another agent that can then expand on those and sort of create like expanding context or ways of visualizing the data. And then that could be passed on to another agent and so on. So, or if you're using this to make business decisions, you could have one agent that cleans incoming data and structures it to put it into a database or like a SQL database. And then you can have another agent that can query that database periodically to see any changes and then display it on an interactive dashboard, and another one that can make recommendations. So these are all prompts at each step of the flow that will still have to be built in and really customized to your use case or your whatever institution's use case that's needed. But AI itself is getting good at generating prompts itself. I like to call this meta prompting, is when I tell Claude, like, I want to create this entire app end to end and create the best prompts to help me do that. And since the AI kind of knows itself better, it can help you extend its capabilities. But prompting is really nuanced and it's really different with each model. So people talk about just kind of developing like a prompt whispering second intuition. And I would recommend that there are interesting resources on ways of structuring prompts that are really good if you are using a repeatable process, that you're going to be running that prompt over and over again for like a core part of your workflow or your business. But a lot of the time we want to kind of minimize the effort that it takes from getting something from our brain into the output. And yeah, as I've been working with Claude, it's incredible at doing that at way faster speed, way better. So I think prompting will become just kind of a second nature thing that everyone will need to know how to do. But we'll all develop kind of our own methods of doing that. And even though there's content published out there around best prompts and papers and things like that, we're so early in this process, in this adoption of AI in our culture. And we really know really little. And there's so much opportunity to create just new ways of using these tools because we've really just scratched the surface. So I would say for this, just be curious and come up with your own methods of prompting that work for you. And I do think it'll become less important to put a lot of like high level thought to start. So this paper, yeah, I was gonna cover this. Who's seen this paper or heard about attention or transformers before, just so I can get like a read on if anyone's dived deep into where GPTs come from. Geoffrey says they've looked into it. Jacob is not. Okay. So this is pretty interesting because this paper came out in 2017. It's called Attention is All You Need. And before this came out, AI was very segregated between different types of fields. So in like an academic AI program, you had a separate department for speech AI and vision AI, language AI, etc. And the breakthroughs and discoveries in each of these different fields didn't translate over because the tools were different. The jargon kept people separate. However, when transformer architecture came out, this was able to be used across all of these different fields. And so now this one model suddenly led to the convergence of all these different fields of AI because they can provide a unified representation of different types of data, and many of the different fields can use this underlying model, like I said. So essentially many different forms of information can be treated as language to be inputted into the transformer. So examples could even include genomic data like DNA sequences and brain imaging data from fMRI and EEG. And so theoretically, not just in AI, it could lead to the cross-pollination of all these different fields. But also, I see this more and more, leading to sort of the interlinking and pollination in diverse fields like neuroscience, physics, and genetics, and how that could even relate to like consumer behavior and marketing. And the quick technical detail about the transformer model is the main feature is its self-attention mechanism. So this mechanism allows the model to capture dependencies between words in a sentence where it weights the importance of each word and the relationship between the words to generate different attention weights. So it's basically able to better capture the relationship between words or whatever form of language that's inputted than whatever previous sequence models like recurrent neural networks were able to do. And yeah, this is really powerful to consider the relationship between words in a sequence simultaneously to capture the semantic meaning and positional information. And the GPT in ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Like I said, yeah, I wanted to just narrow in on this point. But I mentioned when we were talking about prompting, Malgorzata said, I've read about it and also about embeddings. Yeah, embeddings are definitely an important topic when we talk about bringing in an external knowledge base, especially onto a basic LLM. So if we want to integrate ChatGPT into our own knowledge or into our company, AI is able to, we have something called retrieval augmented generation, where it's basically training a model on your own knowledge base or giving it access to knowledge. And we typically use a process of embedding these different chunks of knowledge as like high dimensional vectors that the AI can recognize as text to retrieve something based on the similarity. So it's a really efficient way of querying large amounts of information. And we're still really, really early, and things are moving really fast. So just so you all know, just because you're on this call right now, you're already ahead of like probably 95% of people in the world when it comes to using Gen AI. And because things are moving so fast, like my favorite model now is different than what it was 3 months ago. So it's really important to just come in with a beginner's mind and just kind of explore, take the principles and make it your own. Spend 5 minutes a day using even just the basic tools is really all you need to do, because there's, if you need something for a specific use case, there's been a tool developed for it. But we're entering a world where we can really easily develop our own tools within just a few minutes with prompting Claude. So knowing how to craft prompts to ask the model to help you make things is going to be super important, and just kind of developing an intuition on, yeah, being an AI whisperer and just being really curious about it. And more on AI, how it's useful in data. I put this screenshot because it says OpenAI Sam Altman reportedly seeking up to 7 trillion for AI chip manufacturing venture. This venture is actually called RAIN, and it's developed by someone who went to my University of Florida, and this shows that the main limitation and bottleneck in AI is one, compute. So how much data can we compute all at once? How much can we store? And really, the world needs more AI infrastructure, and especially data infrastructure. And that's the main thing that leading AI CEOs are investing in right now, because data is the bedrock for AI systems. And they're only as good as the data that's inputted into it. So I think we're already kind of starting to see a whole new data economy of people, even individual creators, monetizing their own knowledge base. So I do believe we will see, on kind of along with this theme, the rise of the creators and the micro entrepreneurs who are hyper specialized and being able to monetize their knowledge either through APIs or there's a lot of theories around how the new gig economy will be able to work and connect people with AI, sort of so that your skills aren't going just towards your company that you might be working for, but you can be connected with anyone in the world for your unique skill set. And these are just ways that we're seeing the world heading already. The gig economy has been increasing a lot over the past decade. And data analysts are really the knowledge engineer, because they're the bridge between the AIs, the stakeholders, and the data of the company. And even if it's just yourself and you become a micro entrepreneur and you're managing your own brand and your content and your own data, you're really the knowledge engineer. And you can think of all of this information that you're collecting on your audience as really important data that's going to be the engine and the vehicle to drive the growth of any company. So what we're doing now is using AI to aid in decision making in business and adding value in that way. And so the computer will really be able to do a lot of this analysis work and identify patterns. And so what our job is to act as the liaison, to be able to communicate and really guide the system and then communicate those insights. And so focusing on sort of the higher level decision making of what's really important to us, and embedding the values into our system. And then the focus is on how do we use these existing tools to our advantage. And so the data professionals are ultimately the ones who'll be analyzing the data and telling the story. So the tools need to work for them. And converting insights from analyses into more consumable formats like emails and slideshows and documents is getting way easier. We'll run through an example of this with creating synthetic data and then just making a visualization with it and generating a report all within a couple minutes. So yeah, we can see it's getting way easier, way faster. This means, I think, that we will have way more people, way more data skills needed in this age. So there will be more people entering this field, not less. And I would say around the entire data ecosystem, the one thing that's really getting automated a lot more is the machine learning engineer, because Gen AI models are actually able to do a lot of this machine learning engineering now. But two, we're just more and more using existing base models And so the importance is really identifying what those models that we need to use are. And so there's a lot less actual machine learning needed, but pretty much on all other aspect of the data ecosystem, some parts are getting automated and embedded with AI. And really knowing the tools and positioning yourself on the leading edge of this field, as you're all doing, is going to be huge and compound in benefits in the next 2 years, because a lot of the world will get left behind. And I like to talk a lot about this. I'm not really going to dive too deep into it in today's talk, but yeah, just this concept of the data nervous system as the company brain. This sits at the center of every modern company, and knowing how to program this well is the key for growth of every modern company that especially has any sort of presence on the internet. Yeah, I see I was getting questions, but now I'm not able to. Oh, here we go. Sukashni said, what are the best platforms to collect recent updates on data and AI from around the world? So are you asking about news sites? Is that right? I'm gonna move on, will we? And I talked broadly about all the different types of data earlier, and I just wanted to make this distinction really quick between structured versus unstructured data. Sukeshni, yeah. So I like to follow a lot of different newsletters, as well as researchers themselves on like X, Twitter. But I could generate a list of my recommendations. I'm sure if you search, you can find a lot of good stuff. But I can follow up with a list of what I like to use. So I'll go a little more quickly now because I do want to get through generating synthetic data. But structured versus unstructured, structured database, unstructured, everything else that you find in the wild. So we're able to now do data analysis on unstructured data that we might not have been able to before, that we needed to have structured in a database, because not only can we have AI just structure data for us with pretty high accuracy, but yeah, we can basically query and transform and visualize using natural language. So language is the programming language already of the modern age and the future. And yeah, there's a lot of hype around this, and still I think little implementation relative to how much hype and talk there is about AI, especially when it comes to the agent world. But 77% of companies are either using or exploring the use of AI in their businesses. Probably unsurprisingly, Gen AI is making companies way more data oriented. And when we talk about the AI engineer, I think it's really kind of overlaps with a data role or a data analysis role. And a data analyst will kind of have to do some of these things that an AI engineer does, which is choosing the best models to use for your task or your system, and really doing kind of staying up with the state of the art and just doing this research. Really what this means is it's staying driven to stay kind of on the leading edge of what new updates are coming out. This is really, really important in our day and age. And there's so many aspects of data analysis where AI plays a large role: data prep and processing, synthetic data generation, visualization, sentiment, and other analysis techniques is really fun to do, predictive modeling and report generation. And here's some examples of synthetic data and why other people might want to use synthetic data. So I've been seeing even startups in the space that generate synthetic data just to sell to these multimodal AI companies, to sell to ChatGPT, because they need more and more data. And how they're monetizing this is companies are paying them to implement ads into the training data, which, yeah, you can kind of debate the ethics on that. And right, industries for synthetic data use, there's many, many more. So I'll run through our example, and actually this little workflow that I've created prompts for is a financial simulation on an intergalactic trade across different planets in the galaxy. So if you all want to go ahead and open that document that I just pasted, this will probably take about 5 minutes, and then I can answer any questions. So we might run just a couple minutes over. But yeah, feel free to go to that page, and then you can open ChatGPT or try it with Claude, and you can even try it side by side and see what the difference is. And I'll share my screen to show you what I got with this. So what we're doing with this example is we're just generating a synthetic data set. So we copy and paste this first prompt under the data generation prompt first, and then paste that in. And then once we have the data, we then use the visualization prompt. And let me share my other screen so I can show you guys what this looks like. And who here has done any sort of data visualization or generated synthetic data before? So I'll go along. I've already done this. So here's what my output was for ChatGPT. Just wanted to show you the difference. It was kind of interesting. So they both created a really similar data table, as well as here's the Claude one. And then after the visualization prompt, oh, and if anyone is on Claude, please go to the bottom. Let's see, how do we? Let me know if you're having any trouble with this artifact generation, and I can help you through that. That's been a cool new UI feature with Claude, which is on the right side panel. It'll show the code that it generates, and then it'll run that in an artifact. So if anyone doesn't have that enabled yet and needs help, let me know. So Rui says it's running the table for ChatGPT. Cool. And now I'm curious if what you get looks like this chart that I got was kind of crazy. And I did double check some of the data points and it looked to be accurate. But again, it's kind of an example of what the capabilities are and are going to. Yeah, Sukeshni raised your hand. Did you want to say anything? And then once I generated this visualization, you can even ask it, what are some other visualizations you think would be interesting? So I'm actually going to edit this prompt and say that. So I'm asking ChatGPT, what are some other things you think would be interesting to visualize? And it's going ahead and creating a commodity price volatility illustration. And it's still analyzing, running the code. And feel free while we're doing this, is anyone having any issues? How's the visualization going for you? And feel free to ask questions now at this point too, about anything that we've covered. Elizabeth said ChatGPT gave me the Python code. So I guess in this case, you could either paste it in a Jupyter notebook or maybe follow up and ask, can you just visualize it here in the chat? Can you run the code? And sometimes it'll work for them to do that. So this is another a box plot visualization. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, Jacob. This is what graph I got with Claude. I'm actually not sure if this one is accurate, but I do like the interactivity on it. And I think it could be improved. It's letting me check and uncheck different commodities to add them to the graph or not. Interesting. Yeah. It is interesting how we can all start with the same prompt and get different data, different visualizations, and different output each time. And just to show you really quick, I had this up too. This was, I input a web page that I had on ChatGPT data. And I asked Claude to create a Streamlit app. So Streamlit is really cool because it's a way to visualize Python really easily. Just straight Python code as web apps, basically. So I'll probably talk more about this in a future session because Streamlit is really, I think, revolutionizing the way that we can really easily and seamlessly visualize data and create almost like prototypes of interactive dashboards or create internal dashboards with data streams that are super great, super interactive. They just kind of take Claude artifacts to the next level. And there's a lot of cool examples on ways that people have used this. If you go to streamlit.io, and you can see a lot of the examples that people have created. Rue says that sometimes ChatGPT tells me it can't access the web content when a web link is pasted directly in part of the prompt. Is there a way to get around it? So yeah, unless you have, there's ways to create a custom GPT that actually has a function that you can add to browse the web. It's a little bit more complicated to get into right now. But an easy way to work around that is if you're on a website that you want it to be able to access, just Control A on the whole site and then paste it. Control A is like copy the entire website and then just paste it in the prompt. And then that's a way to get around that and give it that context. But I do believe that ChatGPT has web browsing capabilities with Bing. It should at least, but maybe they've removed it. But as of the latest with Claude, Claude can't access the web. Okay. Yeah, and then that was pretty much it. We're at the last slide. This is a quote I've heard before. AI will not replace humans, but humans using AI will replace humans not using AI, just to kind of address the hype and the fear. And yeah, this is just another tool that we are implementing in society that is important to learn. But the AI itself does need people to guide it. So that's what we're all doing. That's what we're here to do. Yeah, Natalie says, yes, let's do it. Any other last questions? I could take like one or two more before we end. Otherwise, I'll give like 15 more seconds if anyone wants to ask something. But if not, it's been really lovely talking with you all today. Thank you all for showing up for yourselves and your future.
Thank you so much, Jessie. I will come in there at the end of that 15-second countdown. I think we've got lots of thanks coming through on the chat box. So thank you to you, Jessie, for leading that fantastic session. So the first session of a series of four for the current learners on the data analytics program. Just a quick reminder of some of the points I made at the start of the session, that obviously for those of you who are current learners, the recording of the session will be made available in the Circle community first thing tomorrow morning. And for those of you who join us as either alumni learners or potentially prospective learners, maybe thinking about joining us for the next intake, you will also get access to the recording. Jessie, if I could possibly ask you to share your slide deck with me, if that's okay, and then we can circulate that as well, just for anyone who was struggling to see some of the smaller print there. So thank you for your patience with that little technical issue for us. Other than that, I thank you so much for all your time. My colleague Sam has very handily added a reminder into the chat box if you would like to download a brochure about the Career Accelerator, or if following the session this evening you'd like to learn a little bit more and speak perhaps with one of our enrollment advisors. I know I received one or two questions in the Q&A box on that matter. So we hope to see some of you later in the year joining the program and getting then to join in with more sessions in Jessie's AI Masterclass, which once again runs alongside the Data Analytics program. For now, everyone, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening wherever you are, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.